Hi, I'm Gavin,
And I'm Dave.
and you're on the fringe.
Come along with us for a ride on a podcast where we talk about an area or a thing going on in the world that needs more attention, just like you do. Let's go.
On the fringe. Here we go.
Hello, hello,
Hello.
everyone.
We'll edit this out. Hello,
Jinx.
everyone. Welcome to On the Fringe. I'm Gavin, and this is Dave.
Hey,
And today
everyone.
I'm planning on packing me a big old duffel bag full of money and getting on a plane. Is that a good idea, Dave?
Is it Monopoly money? Is it pennies? Because I mean, my biggest worry would be if you're bringing a duffel bag full of pennies, you're probably going to be over the weight limit, right? And that's going to cost you a pretty penny. You might end up having to give that whole duffel bag over to United, full of its contents, to pay for that duffel bag to get on that plane. I mean, I'm just
That's
thinking here. I'm
that
not. I'm not an expert in the weight of individual coins, and I mean, you could maybe do it in rupiah and throw them for a loop because those rupee are pretty lightweight. But I don't know. That would not
somehow
be
I
my first
feel
strategy.
somehow I feel like if I filled a duffel bag full of rupiah coins, I wouldn't have enough money to pay to get the bag on the plane.
Probably not. And fun fact, if you were to fill it full of 1 yen coins, those 1 yen coins can float on top of a beer. So if you want to do a cool party trick, get yourself a 1 yen Japanese coin and put it on your beer and show people. And I bet you can make a couple of yen or even a couple of pennies or maybe even a dollar or two by showing people that yes, you can make a coin float.
And you know what's more important than that, Dave? You might
What,
make a few
Gavin?
good friends. You might make a few good friends. And you know what, Dave? You might need some friends because today we're talking about why you maybe shouldn't bring large amounts of money on a plane, particularly if you were traveling over the last 10 years. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Dave, can you just tell us about Operation Jetways?
I will. So, Operation Jetway was the DOJ and the DEA's way of potentially stopping money laundering across the United States. And Operation Jetway is not taking a scalpel. No, no, no. They're taking a machete and they're basically whacking off everything that they can to try to stop money laundering and stop cash from moving across the United States. So this was a program that ran for over 10 years and it ran until November of last year. And it primarily targeted travelers buying last minute tickets who had minimal baggage and they fit the profile of somebody who was a cash courier, aka anyone. And there was a video on YouTube a couple of months ago where a guy at the Cincinnati airport was being harassed by a DEA special agent. I mean, this guy probably puts the special in special. This guy was totally abusing his power, and I hope he has a different job right now. But basically, he kicked a guy off a plane because he had bought a ticket at the last minute, and they went through, they searched his bag, they didn't find anything, and the passenger was not consenting to a search. So when the DEA found cash, and it ranged from thousands of dollars to somebody who had had $522 on them in Sacramento, they would largely seize the money and they would put it into a fund. And the DEA took over $2 billion when they ran this program.
Now, the primary instrument with which they're doing this is something called civil asset forfeiture, which is this very interesting legal instrument that law enforcement has available to them in the United States. And it basically means that you can seize civil assets that you suspect to be involved in or the product of illicit activity. Now, the crazy thing about this, particularly if you're not from the US, if you are from the US, you've probably heard of this at some point. If you're not from the US, you do not need a warrant. You do not need probable cause. So, as far as I'm aware, uh, I think pretty much none of the people targeted under Operation Jetway were actually arrested. Um, you are not involved in any criminal proceedings, but if you are carrying cash, that's a civil asset and that will be forfeited. Um, $2 billion, most of that was seized in cash, and I believe most of that was not returned to the people it was confiscated from, particularly when you have federal agencies involved, like the DEA. It's not entirely clear who you're going to go to get that money back and what the procedure exactly is. You've already talked about this a little bit, but the DEA or the Drug Enforcement Agency, why were they so involved in this?
Well, the DEA is primarily going after the fentanyl and the opioid crisis going on in the United States, primarily fentanyl. And if you're carrying money, and all of the criminal organizations that manufacture and traffic fentanyl need money to actually operate. So do terrorist groups, so do businesses, and so does organized crime. So the logic and the reasoning is if you stop the money, then you can stop the actual problem. And they're looking at it and going, we can go after small bits of money or we can go after large bits of money that we think are being used by these criminal organizations. Because in money laundering, you can take a big chunk of money, say $10,000, that you would have to report legally to the IRS or to the bank when you actually deposit it, or more than $10,000, and say we're going to divide it up. We're going to put $3,000 and $5,000 and $1,000 and $750 and $250. I think that's 10,000, and have four or five smaller transactions. It's called smurfing, where you take a big chunk of money, you put it into smaller bits, and you either move it around so it's less traceable.
And this is an incredibly common tactic used in any kind of illicit activity. It's you have to do it in any if you're operating in any environment where there is law enforcement, where there is some sort of centralized IRS type agency, some central tax authority. You are going to have to adopt a strategy like this. Now, did the DEA DOJ initiative work? I mean, clearly not. You know, the last I checked, the narcotic trafficking of fentanyl in the United States has not exactly ceased activity. And it does seem like at a certain point, people in the DOJ realized this program might have started off with the right intention, but was kind of going wildly out of control. And a lot of people, unsurprisingly, if you're carrying some travel money and you get basically thrown in a room by a DEA agent and all of your money's taken away and you can't get it back, you're not going to be very happy about that. And that this was happening to definitely more people than I ever would have imagined.
Mm-hmm. And it was happening to people as well that had small amounts. So
Mm.
there was a report created by the Institute for Justice, and this came out back in 2020. And there are some of these, when I look through the report, I'm not doing a deep data analysis and going through this deeply, but you have some of these where, okay, there's one person that was, I guess, caught by the DEA and had their money seized in Sacramento, $522. There was a guy that had $958 taken in Palm Springs. And then you have some other ones, like there's one seizure at the Orlando Executive Airport for $12,220. So you have no idea where that money is going, and it's perfectly legal to bring in the United States as much money as you want with you in the country or out of the country or within the country. But if you're going in or out and it's over $10,000 in money or monetary instruments, you have to declare it. It's very, very important. You have to declare it. There's no such declaration that I'm aware of if you're traveling within the United States.
Hmm.
So there are cases as well. There's another one I'm looking at right here. So at the Peoria, Illinois International Airport, somebody had $50,020 seized by the DEA. So if I saw somebody with $50,000 or I found $50,000 in a bag or a check bag or on somebody, that would raise a red flag to me as well. But finding
Yeah.
$220 on somebody or $720, I look at it and go, okay, where are you going? Why do you have this money? And 99% of the time, it's going to be for their travels. It's just a huge, huge amount of government overreach that was actually bipartisanly supported that this organization or that this operation needed to stop. Just kind of surprising.
I mean, it's, you told me about this, and I was kind of happy about it because it's kind of rare right now in America. But yeah, people across the aisle did look at this and go, "Boy, this is out of control. Like this is a problem." Um, that did result in it being shut down. But I do know that civil asset forfeiture is still a massive issue in America, and it is still being debated because, this is an example of it on a federal level, but certainly on a local level. And I'm not going to go into how we're pretty much the only country in the world with county level law enforcement, but there are numerous examples of local police forces being accused of massive overreach when it comes to civil asset forfeiture because it is kind of an excellent revenue stream if you're not doing very much. Um, this is an ongoing legal reform issue in America today, that's being kind of debated at every possible level. But this was, you brought this up to me, and my jaw was on the floor, Dave. I was
Mm-hmm.
shocked because I had no idea this was going on.
Well, I was
Um,
too when I saw this.
yeah, it's pretty shocking when you hear about the amount of money that was confiscated, the amount of people that were detained and had their money seized. It's really quite surprising, and it's still surprising to me that this was not more of a story.
Right. I
Um,
mean, that's the biggest surprise for me is
yeah,
this was largely swept under the rug by a lot of the mainstream media. And Fox News wrote a piece about this, and in their piece they mentioned that the DEA was paying off airport workers who would flag the passenger itineraries. And I mean, yeah, that's a piece from Fox News and it was on their website. And I tried to find pieces on all the mainstream news and also some other websites that are, I guess, quote, newsworthy. And I couldn't find that much about this. The best sources that I found were YouTube, and there were some other NGOs like the Institute for Justice that actually had written basically lots of information about this, and they also wrote a couple of reports. So it's very interesting to me that there was not
me
more,
as well.
I guess,
Yeah,
especially from Republicans and Democrats as well, that are more, I would say, against and people that are trying to drain the swamp. That this is one of those big problems that you could easily target as the swamp being too big, and we need to drain this and get rid of the government agents and the people that work for the government that are overstepping their roles. So, anyway.
yeah. I mean, you would think, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I think as we've seen pretty conclusively, once I believe that Fox News article actually came out under a Republican administration, uh, or shortly thereafter. It- this does seem to be a bipartisan issue in interesting ways. And certainly that program was running throughout multiple administrations from both parties. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, hopefully this is kind of the end as far as the DOJ is concerned, but I have a funny feeling it might not be. Um, yeah, interesting,
Yeah,
interesting stuff. Anyways,
definitely. And I was going to say, I look at this and go, this is not a bad thing to do. You want to stop organized crime, you want to stop illegal drugs coming into the United States, but at the same time, you can't just go after average people. You've got to have a much more targeted approach, and there needs to be connections within all levels of American civil society to stop this problem. This isn't something that the government is going to be able to solve itself and say, okay, we're going to go after and take all of the proceeds that we think are coming from illegal activity or supporting criminal activity. You've got to have every single level of American civil society involved to actually solve a problem like the fentanyl crisis.
yeah, and some basic respect for civil liberties would be nice too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
anyways, on that note, sounds like my Christmas list. Uh, on that note, thank you for joining us on the Fringe this week. We'd appreciate if you would like, comment, and or subscribe. All the above would be nice. And thank you for joining us on the Fringe.
Thank you guys. Take care.